Okay, thank you, sir.
We're streaming now, I think. Yeah, we're streaming, so we can't cuss or spit or anything.
Exactly. Okay, Doc, after weather, just like normal.
All right, we're about ready to do a show. I'm Dr. Bill, and we're streaming live on a few venues. I think on Facebook, Dr. Bill Radio MD, and I don't know where else. I think I got kicked off of YouTube, so no big deal. Not many people look at me on YouTube anyway.
7 people listed as dead. Letters of the Apostle Paul.
I want to get people, if they're already Christian,
You
the
can
Bible, I want to entice them to do so. If they're intimidated by the Bible, I want to help them get over their intimidation.
It's entitled The Resurrected Jesus, the Church in the New Testament.
It's also addressed to skeptics because who knows, a skeptic who may be inclined to read this may pick it up and then find something attractive.
Limbaugh wrote this one with his daughter, Kristen Limbaugh Bloom. Abortion laws in South Carolina will remain unchanged after Republicans in the General Assembly couldn't agree on a total ban. The South Carolina House voted in a special session last week to reject tweaks the state Senate made to the current 6-week ban. State Senate President Thomas Alexander says there's simply not enough votes to make any changes. This is SRN News.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. For years, some politicians have justified costly and burdensome regulations by telling us they're worth it, even if they save only a few lives. Now, strangely, many of the same people ignore a scourge that's killing our young people. I'm talking about fentanyl. Overdoses have become the leading cause of death for Americans between 18 and 45. It's coming in over our southern border. Last year, law enforcement seized about 2.5 billion doses of fentanyl at the border, and more of our fellow citizens died from drugs than we lost throughout the entire Vietnam War. 250,000 Americans have died from drugs in just the last 3 years. The politicians who refuse to protect our country's border from the poison that's flowing across it care more for some political agenda than for our country's youth, its future. Throw them out.
Publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu.
The following program is sponsored by Bay Area Medical Can Care Clinic.
The latest from AccuWeather at the top and bottom of the hour. Only on AM 860, The Answer.
Mostly sunny skies for today with a high of 85. Clear tonight with a low 70. Plenty of sunshine tomorrow with a high of 84. Partly sunny skies for Tuesday with a high of 83. Plan with confidence. Download the redesigned AccuWeather app today. That's your AccuWeather forecast. I'm Gregory Patrick for AM 860, The Answer.
And I'm on. This is Dr. Bill, your radio MD. I got Ken with me this morning. Good morning, Ken.
Morning, Doc. How are you today, sir?
I'm good, buddy. How you doing?
Pretty good. How'd you come through, Ian?
Well, we went up to the office, which is a pretty heavy block building with a gyp deck and very narrow hurricane-proof windows, so you could hardly hear any wind blowing. But we didn't get much here in St. Petersburg. We really, we were so lucky we dodged the bullet. It's just what's happened down on the beach in Fort Myers is just devastating. And did you see the causeway washed out?
I did. That's amazing. It really is.
I mean, it just ripped up the blacktop and the concrete and cut a big swath of that bridge right out. If you guys don't know about it, the causeway goes out to Sanibel Island and some of the other little barrier islands. And you may say, well, if people build on the barrier islands, then they get what they deserve, or they deserve what they get, which is probably to a degree true. And I think if you're going to live on the coast here, you have to be willing to accept the risk that go along with it. And certainly hurricanes are one of them. But this apparently was one of the biggest to hit the continental United States. And
I think it's the fourth biggest ever hit Florida.
Oh, yeah, it's a big storm. It was not a Category 5, but it was a Category 4 when it made landfall at Fort Myers. Fort Myers is about, an hour and a half, 2 hours south of St. Petersburg, I'd say, Ken?
That's a good estimate, yeah.
And we were looking at that thing hitting us head on, but they always try to scare us in Tampa Bay because we're such a large population base. We're the second or third largest population in the state in the Tampa Bay area. And, of course, the powers that be don't want to see a massive disaster. It would have been 5 times the cost and the number of lives if it had hit here directly. I think so far we're over 60 dead that they've counted, 60, 65, something like that.
Last estimate I heard may have been 70, but 70. Don't quote me on that.
Going up, well, maybe going up. And you say, well, that's horrible that we lost 70 people. But you know what? That's pretty damn lucky. That's all we lost. You know?
Well, they're still counting, too.
They're still counting. I mean, you know, it's probably going to be over 100 once they dig up dig out of the sand in the barrier islands. And a lot of the homes that were destroyed were, of course, stick. They were 2x4 wooden homes. The block homes didn't seem to fare as poorly. And, of course, any mobile homes and manufactured homes, they got whacked. But
I'm always amazed at the power of the sea.
I'm amazed by weather in general. It's really, I've always loved the weather. I love a storm, but I also have great respect for the hurricanes and the tornadoes and the damage that they can inflict. They're pretty awesome, dude.
I was, living in Chicago all those years. I've gone through some pretty bad blizzards, and I was wondering when I was moving down here, which is worse, a blizzard or a hurricane? And I can tell you for sure now, it's a hurricane.
Oh, yeah. A blizzard, you may have a few people get stuck in their cars and freeze to death, but a hurricane...
But your house is not going to blow away.
The house is not going to blow away. I mean, you may have some roof damage if the snow doesn't slide off, but... boy, I tell you.
Other than that, you just sit around and wait for somebody to clear the streets, and you pay somebody to come and shovel your driveway, and you're out.
Yeah, as long as you got heat.
Exactly.
And some running water, you're good to go. We did throw sandbags and plastic at the garage door and at the front door and back on the patio door, the lanai door. And I went up to the clubhouse and I've taped plastic and sandbagged those doors as well. We got all the furniture inside, but we didn't have any damage at our house or our office, just tree branches down, that sort of thing. And the only damage I saw at the clubhouse was that one of the gate latches had broken, and I guess the gate was just swinging in the wind. And the bottom rail, where it meets the upright post for the, how a gate's like a box. It's got 2 rails, bottom and top, and then 2 posts, and then pickets in the middle. It had just torn both of the joints, the welded joints on the bottom of the rail where it met the uprights. So we're going to have to get that down. I did replace the lock on the latch on the gate so that we didn't have any children or dogs or cats wander in there and fall in the pool and drown. Liability as well as loss of life. So that was about the only bad thing we had happen, Ken. It was it was just a miraculous situation that we didn't get whacked.
Now, I lost, we had we still have, they're still there. Wasn't that bad. We have a lanai that has about 6 or 7 sliding glass doors around it on 2 sides. And during the height of the storm, when the winds were around 80 miles an hour, I began to notice that one of the doors was leaning from the bottom towards the top on kind of a 30-degree angle or so. And then the next one next to it started leaning as well. And then the third one next to it started leaning as well. They're all part of one set. And when I went out there, I noticed again that the track on the bottom had moved. Apparently, the people who put this thing in some 20 years ago, whenever they put it in, never secured it to the floor.
Oh, my God.
So the wind was blowing all 3 doors in.
Oh, no.
At the bottom, yeah. And all 3 were going to come crashing down, so I found everything heavy I could find out in Lanai, bird baths and things like that, and put it up against the door, and they finally stopped moving. But I managed to push them back in yesterday. So. Well,
good for you. And, get your concrete bit and drill some holes in there and screw it down, dude. And get a little caulk, too, would be nice.
Yeah, well,
I think this
take care of all that.
This is another reason why in this area we have to have strong hurricane code, building codes, and enforcement of those codes, because these builders, they're the subs or whatever, they'll cut corners if they're in a hurry or if they've had too much to drink the night before. So you got to keep an eye on it.
And people make mistakes, and that's why code inspectors are there, to catch those mistakes.
Yeah, and they catch mistakes, and you just have to keep an eye on things. It's like keeping an eye on your health and taking care of yourself and getting an annual checkup and getting all your vaccinations and staying on your medications and not smoking. So, but yeah, it's important really to have these codes and to abide by them. And we changed the codes here in Florida after Andrew back in the 90s, and now we use the hurricane straps on the rafters and on the ceiling joist and the wood and the corners, 2x4s.
I think shutters are mandatory now, are they not?
I don't think so, but
for new construction,
I don't think they are. But I mean, you can get the hurricane proof windows. They're like 150 mile an hour impact. What they do is they take a 2x4 and they shoot it at the window at about 150 miles an hour to see if the window will crumble, and that's what they're doing now. But I don't think with new construction you have to do that, but I may be wrong. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I know we built a new house a couple of years ago, and they were there, so they came with shutters, which was nice.
Yeah, and those are absolutely, I think, better than the storm windows, because even if you have a 150 mile an hour 2x4 hit your window, it's still going to crack it. You're still going to have to replace it.
Right.
The shutters are a lot easier to replace. The window, you got to take out the sashes, and you got to unscrew them from the wood or the concrete, depending on what kind of home you have, and slide them out, and then you have to order new ones and caulk, and it's a little bit more work than just unscrewing the hinges on a hurricane shutter.
Yes, it is. I almost lost a palm tree.
A palm tree?
In fact, I probably will in the next storm.
It's leaning over that much, huh?
Well, it's leaning at about 10 degrees right now.
Well, they'll lean over 70 degrees and still live.
Well, I was watching the ground come up on the back end of the tree as the wind was blowing, so I don't know if it'll reset itself or not. I'm not that familiar with palm trees.
Yeah, well, you realize that they're not really trees.
They're grasses, aren't they?
Yeah, they're in the grass family. They're big overgrown grasses. And we've memorialized and made sacred the palm tree down here. I forget which species it is. And you're not supposed to cut them down without permission. Did you know that?
I did not know that, but I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah, you're not supposed to. It's like the live oaks in St. Petersburg. You can't cut them down without getting a permit from the city. Oh, my God, the tree huggers are back. And now we got the grass huggers. So, at any rate, we got...
Well, I'm glad you came through everything okay, Doc.
Yeah, and I'm glad you did too, Ken. I'm glad your windows didn't blow in on you. You guys had 80 mile an hour gust. We didn't have that up here, but you were close. You're further, you're about, 45 minutes south of St. Pete?
Yeah.
So you were closer to
30 minutes north of Sarasota, yeah.
You were pretty close to the epicenter. You were, maybe 50 miles away from the eye.
I was close enough.
Close enough for windows to blow out.
Yeah.
That weren't screwed down. So
yeah, I got to take care of that. You're absolutely right. I got to get myself a hammer. I've been reading about it. I have to find a hammer jack, or what do they call it? The special kind of screwdriver you use to put something like that in.
Hammer drill.
Hammer drill.
It's called a hammer drill, and you'll need concrete bits, and you'll need regular bits, because you're going to have to go through the aluminum or wood at the base of the housing of the sliding glass door.
Well, the holes are there. They just didn't use them.
Well, make sure you get some epoxy or some thread lock and put it in there too, so that it doesn't come loose over the years. And put a little dab of caulk down in there to keep the holes from bleeding, from oozing water back up at you. So you got to do a little bit there, and you should be okay. But if you if you already have the holes in the concrete, you really don't need a hammer drill.
No, but I do have to draw. I have some tile I have to go through first without cracking, so I'll have to get like a diamond bit or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep, you'll need that. Somebody's
So.
calling you, bud.
Hey, hang on a second. I bet I know who this is.
It's the captain.
Hang on here.
The captain. He's
I'll
up.
bet this is the captain calling to give some advice. Captain, is this you?
Yes, it's me. What's up? What's up? What's up? I can tell you what's up. I just left somebody from the Cajun Navy.
From the what? I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit there.
Okay, I'm going under a bridge. I just left somebody from the Cajun Navy.
Cajun
the
Navy.
Cajun Navy, yeah. I saw one of
They
the
got
guys.
about 100 of their boats down here working down. As a matter of fact, I'm coming out of Sarasota right now. I had to come down here for a different reason. But they got about 100 of their boats down working in the zone, and they were all headed back to where they were going.
Yeah, I saw one of the guys on the radio or on the television this morning, and he was praising DeSantis' response. He said that DeSantis was the most responsive of any governor that he's encountered after a big storm like this in the Gulf Coast area, you know, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida. So I thought that was high praise coming from these guys. This is a volunteer group from Louisiana, and they
Yes,
go
sir.
and they go in and they help rescue and redo and bring in water and different things. They're good guys.
Well, let me tell you something. The people that stayed on the barrier islands are crazy. They've had over 1,500 rescues so far on the barrier islands from people that stayed behind. That's nuts. They never should have been there.
And the governor did give warning. Now, the press is criticizing Governor DeSantis and saying he didn't give adequate warning. But once the storm track changed, he ordered his emergency people in the county higher-ups to order a mandatory evacuation. Now, let me explain this. In Florida, mandatory evacuation means that you should leave, but you don't have to leave. But if you don't leave, don't bother calling for help because nobody's going to come and rescue you until after the storm's over. So mandatory means, well, it's mandatory if you want to be okay. And if you don't want to be okay and you want to take your chances, well, then you're on your own. Because I think after 40 or 50 miles an hour winds start up, Captain, I don't think the police or the fire or rescue people will come out.
You're right. 40 miles an hour is the limit. But here's the other thing. I've been told by a couple of legislators, state legislators, they're going to change the regulation for the next time around when they get back in session. They're going to make it mandatory with a fine. You'll get a ticket. You'll get a ticket right on the spot for staying behind. I don't know what the cost is going to be. I've heard different rates. But that may change their minds.
Yeah, and we tried to get all of our neighbors to leave to go somewhere, come up to the office with us or whatever. And I know several of them said, no, they were staying. Now, they said, well, the course has changed and we don't think it's going to hit here. But you never know with a hurricane. They have a mind of their own.
Now, Doc, I want you to know something. Your signal can be heard down as far as Port Segura on 860. I know because I heard it all the way down to South Sarasota where I had to go to this morning.
Well,
And you're
that's
talking
good.
to people that are down there that are listening to you.
Well, I would like to say hi to everybody in Punta Gorda and South Sarasota, and I hope everybody's okay. Our thoughts and prayers are with you, as much as I know how to pray anymore. And but I'm glad that
Ask Ken; he'll tell you.
Ken,
Well,
Ken's
the
got
hurricane was blowing 80 miles an hour. I was saying a few prayers and hiding under my bed.
Well, I was.
And one other thing. My kudos go out to the first responders. I've seen people from everywhere down there and around. I mean, New Jersey, Virginia, Pennsylvania. My brother's from New York, FDNY. People from Massachusetts. People from Illinois. Firefighters everywhere down there.
Most impressive to me, Captain, are the various electrical lineman crews that come from all over the country. I mean, all over, and even here in St. Pete, I was riding my bike down in Gulfport yesterday, and there were several trees that had come down and the lines were down, and there were 3 or 4 crews from out of state that were repairing our lines for us. I tell you, it's really remarkable the goodwill and also our ability to do this. I mean, how many countries on the planet have the ability to muster this kind of support, even at the level of electrical wiring?
Ken?
And
Ken?
Yes, sir.
I-75 is open again. It was closed for about 24 hours because of flooding.
Yeah.
Okay, over the river there.
But you can't get into
over the
Fort
Myakka
Myers.
and the Peace Rivers.
Fort Myers is still closed.
Fort Myers is, but not Sarasota County. It's open again.
Okay, good. That's good to know, Captain. All right.
Well, Captain.
All right, I got a convoy of power trucks coming south right now. Nothing I recognize, so they must be out of state. I'm coming over the bridge right now, and they're coming south out of St. Pete.
There you go. We appreciate them.
Captain, you drive safe on your way back here.
Give them
I'll be there shortly. I'm bringing the food.
give them our kudos, Captain. Tell them we love them.
Take care, you guys. Take care.
Thanks, Captain.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Captain Mack can be heard on this here radio station every morning at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, 2 a.m. if you're up. He tried to get me to come on at 6 a.m. I'm like, dude, that's when I'm working crossword puzzles and drinking coffee. I can't do that.
Captain has more energy than a 20-year-old, I swear.
I know. Well, you know what he does is he cat naps all day long. So wherever he goes, he just sits down and goes to sleep for a few minutes.
Hey, it worked for Thomas Edison. That's the way he worked all his life.
That's the way Abraham Lincoln worked. You know what Abraham Lincoln did? He would hold a pencil in his hand and he'd let his arms drop down in his big chair, and then when he fell asleep and the pencil would drop, he'd wake up. That's pretty cool.
The pencil alarm. I like it.
At any rate, enough about the hurricane. Let's get on to something else. So we've got the markets melting down, Ken. I don't know if you noticed that. They're down about...
I have noticed some big numbers at the end of the day.
And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that what happened in Great Britain this past week has further deteriorated the markets. It's a mix of inflation, higher interest rates, and they also, the new prime minister, she implemented a 1.8% tax cut, which, of course, all the blue-collar people are saying is for the wealthy, since the wealthy paid, or the well-to-do paid 99% of the taxes anyway. And so they have a 50-year government bond. 50-year pays 4 to 5%, which is a long bond. I don't think we have more than a 20 or 30-year, but I don't know for sure. But
I've never heard more than 20, to tell you the truth, but 50 is a very long time.
The bonds lost a tremendous amount of money in a day and then came back a little bit, and so their market crashed. The pound is down against the dollar. I think it's down about 17 or 18% below the $1 level. So so that's 83 cents that you'll get. So this would be a good time to go to Great Britain because things will be extremely cheap for Americans. So, 83 cents is what the pound is worth against the dollar, and about the same for the euro, which is really unusual. So this is a really good time to go there, but they're going to have some hard their markets are crashing. They're going to have some hard times. They're raising their interest rates, and they're working their way into a stagflation, and the Chinese are noticing this and criticizing them. The Chinese Global Times is criticizing the British collapse, as they call it. And I think, Ken, that, of course, the Chinese want the yuan to be the world currency. They want to see the dollar and the pound go under. But guess what's gotten even stronger worldwide?
What's that? The dollar.
The dollar.
Yeah.
The dollar's gone up. And part of this is that bond traders are saying, you know what, if you overspend federal governments, we're going to punish you. And they punish the markets by saying, we're not going to buy your bonds, which is how you get money into the coffers as you sell bonds or treasury notes or whatever you want to call it. And then when you want to decrease the amount of money in circulation, you swap it back. So you get people to buy your bonds, and they hold a little piece of paper, and they give you cash, and you put that into the Treasury, and then all this has to balance out. So when Congress says we want to spend $1 trillion, It has to go through budgetary committees. It has to go through the Treasury, because it's a business. And at the end of the day, at the end of the year, you have to balance your books. So your debits and your credits have to equalize, and you have to have assets to offset your liabilities. Otherwise, nobody will do business with you. Nobody's going to do business with a country that is upside down and broke. And that seems to be the situation Great Britain is approaching. And we may get there shortly, too, if we don't do something. So
we need a balanced budget amendment.
Well, I don't think we need a balanced budget amendment. We need a responsible central government that's not going to throw good money after bad and bail out everybody and his brother, and forgive all kinds of student loans and float out all kinds of loans to businesses that don't deserve it. Some of that is normal operating procedure, and you have to have that for a country to run. It's the same way when they were building the Transcontinental Railroad in the 1860s. The government basically subsidized it with the intent of being repaid after the railroad was built. And you remember they met at Promontory Point in Utah.
The Golden Spike, yep.
And the Golden Spike, yeah. And the incentives were, of course, the loan from the federal government to build the railroads across the country. And one company came from Omaha and another came from Sacramento, I think. And they had a race to meet in the middle. And the more track they laid, the more federal land they could claim. So it was a twofer. Not only did they get a loan to build this thing, but they also got free land at these companies as they went along. And these rail beds are still intact and still owned by private or by corporations, publicly held corporations, but basically not by the government.
I think somebody eventually stole that Golden Spike, didn't they?
I've got one that looks a lot like it in my safety box here. My dad said he got it from his dad, who got it from his dad, who got it from some Chinese guy. But the Chinese Americans, they built that damn railroad from.
They sure did.
Coming from California to Promontory Point, they were, because what would happen is the European and the American guys would come, and then there'd be a gold rush, here, there, everywhere, or a silver rush, and they'd all throw down their tools and go mining, and the Chinese Americans are like, hell, we're not going to do that. Well, let's just stay here. We're getting paid better than we've ever gotten paid before, and we got 3 hots and a cot.
Yeah.
God knows how many people died laying that, but they did it.
Well, going over the Rockies, can you imagine going through the Rockies? That must have been unbelievably hard work.
They went through granite.
Yeah.
That was before they had mechanical drill, so they had to hand drill, and then initially they were using black powder to blast through the mountains. And then nitroglycerin came along, and they started using nitroglycerin. And then California said, well, you can't ship it anymore because it's too volatile. It's too dangerous. There are too many accidents on the roads. And so then they started making the nitroglycerin on site at the railroad construction sites. And, of course, that sped things up considerably, but it also greatly increased the death rate because you'd have an occasional
Yes, you would imagine so.
And speaking of blow-ups, I'm still upset about Meghan Markle. I know I talked about that last week. Ken, I don't know why she's so nasty.
She's an actress.
Oh, okay. So she's a drama queen.
She's not nasty. She's a diva.
She's a diva. Okay. And it's William she's married to?
Harry,
she's married to. Yeah, Prince Harry. Now, William's in line for the throne, and Harry's number 2.
He's next, right.
Yeah.
Now Kate we love.
And Kate we love. But now, listen, what is with Harry? I mean, he is so whipped by this woman. She threatened to leave him if he didn't come out publicly and support her, and then threatened to leave him again. And she said, I'm taking the kid and leaving. I'm going to Canada. Of course, she ended up back in Hollywood, and then I think they're back in London temporarily. And she wanted to be paid for her royal appearances.
Well,
and she wanted
it's
to
what
keep.
She's used to.
Yeah, and she wanted to keep all of her free gifts. And they're trying to explain to her, you're not an actress anymore. You're a public figure, You're kind of like an elected official, and you can't take free gifts because it's considered a bribe,
And she says, all I did was marry the guy. Why are you taking this stuff from me?
She's like, and she refused to give it up.
Yeah.
And yelling at the help. He sounds like Hillary Clinton, cussing him out and giving him a hard time. At any rate, I just had to get that out there because you know how I am about the Royals. I got my.
Well, I know, Doc.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do a little break here. You settle down, get some coffee.
All right, I'm gonna try and regather myself. And we need a question, dude. We need a question.
Oh, that's right. We haven't done a question. Hang on here. I got it right here.
Okay.
All right. This is for, as always, to Dr. Bill, your Radio MD coffee mugs. And the first caller with the correct answer will win. And as always, the question comes from the first half of the show somewhere. We talked about this. If you were listening, you have the answer already. And the first one to call at 877-969-8600. That's 877-969-8600 with the correct answer wins. Where did Doc ride out the hurricane? Where did Doc ride out the hurricane? First caller at 877-969-8600 will win. We'll see you on the other side, Doc.
You got it, buddy. All right, we'll be right back.
Here's the latest from the Answer News Center.
With SRN News, I'm Michael Harrington in Washington. Panic after police fired tear gas at an Indonesian soccer match to drive away rampaging fans last night has left at least 174 people dead. Most of them were trampled upon or suffocated. It's one of the deadliest sports events in world history. Attention immediately is focusing on police use of tear gas, which is banned at soccer stadiums by the governing body of soccer, FIFA. Russia has attacked the Ukrainian president's hometown with suicide drones, and Ukraine is pushing ahead with its counteroffensive that has embarrassed the Kremlin, Ukraine taking back control of a strategic eastern city, Lyman. And rescuers continue to evacuate survivors of Hurricane Ian off the coast of Florida on barrier islands. Hundreds of thousands of people are also still in the dark. The death toll from the big storm in Florida stands at 47. This is SRN News.
AM 860, The Answer. Listen on our website, theanswertampa.com, on 100.3 FM, W229DJ Dunedin, by downloading the Answer Tampa app, or on TuneIn or Odyssey.
Dr. Bill for Bay Area Medical, located at 6399 38th Avenue North in St. Pete, 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. Full service clinic with x-ray, heart imaging, ultrasound, stress testing, and minor surgery. We provide quality health care in a warm and friendly atmosphere. We are multilingual, well-trained, and certified. Most American insurance and new patients accepted. Bay Area Medical, home of Can Care, 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411.
Dr. Bill here. With social distancing and sheltering in place, telemedicine is here. Bay Area Medical, home of Can Care Clinic offers telemedicine for new and established patients. You can see me without an in-office visit. Schedule an appointment at 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. When it's time for your appointment, type this web address into your cell phone or computer web browser, doxy.me/Bay Area Med. A cell phone works well and is all you really need. For computers, you need a web camera and speakers. We'll give you this address when you call for your appointment. We accept most insurances and travel insurances. Canadians and visitors, please call your travel insurance company for an authorization number prior to the visit. Copays and deductibles apply. Self-pay rates are available. Just ask. We accept credit cards, PayPal, and Stripe. 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411.
Dr. Bill here. My friends at St. Pete MRI and Sleep Diagnostics are your best choice for state-of-the-art MRI, CT, and sleep studies. Quality unsurpassed. 25 years experience makes St. Pete MRI my go-to imaging center. Self-pay rates are competitive and out-of-pocket cost a fraction of a hospital. Conveniently accessible from both sides of the bay at 750 94th Avenue North, St. Pete, near the Gandhi. 727-577-2220, 727-577-2220.
The latest from AccuWeather at the top and bottom of the hour. Only on AM 860, The Answer.
Mostly sunny skies for today with a high of 85. Clear tonight with a low 70. Plenty of sunshine tomorrow with a high of 84. Partly sunny skies for Tuesday with a high of 83. Plan with confidence. Download the redesigned AccuWeather app today. That's your AccuWeather forecast. I'm Gregory Patrick for AM 860, The Answer.
And I'm back. This is Dr. Bill. Got Ken with me, and we're doing a radio show and streaming live on a few venues. And from what the captain tells us, we're making it all the way down to South Sarasota and where else? Punta Gorda, did he say?
I think he said as far as Punta Gorda, yeah.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Me too.
The tentacles are getting longer. Oh, boy.
And we have a winner, Doc.
Oh, we do. What do we got?
We have Betsy McKinley. Betsy McKinley is one of my favorite towns, Largo. Your winner today. She was the first one to call with the correct answer. And the question was, where did Doc ride out the storm? Doc, where were you?
I was at the office.
That's all right. And Betsy knew that. She was listening earlier this morning when we gave away the answer there. And she's going to get those two Dr. Bill, two very coveted Dr. Bill, your Radio MD coffee mugs to be headed your way. And thanks to everybody who called in and tried to win.
Betsy, thanks for listening. I wonder, Betsy, is she related? Ken, maybe we'll find out another time, but maybe she's related to President McKinley.
Oh, that'd be fascinating, wouldn't it?
That'd be cool. If she is, she needs to come on and tell us about her great uncle-in-law or whatever.
And if she has any memorabilia in that era.
Yeah.
She should call Jeff at the antique show.
Yeah.
make a couple of bucks on old Grandpa.
So, do you know the Nord pipeline? You know what that is? Nord?
Yes, I know. Last I heard, we sabotaged it.
Well, the Russians said we sabotaged it, and we said the Russians sabotaged it, and the Germans said, well, it's just a defect in it. And so I'm looking at the bubbling. If you don't know what the Nord pipeline is, it's a pipeline from northwestern Russia, right near the Finnish border, the St. Petersburg area. It's on the Baltic Sea, and it runs in the Baltic Sea to northern Germany. So these countries are all pretty close together in that European arena there. And so there's a couple of pipelines that pump natural gas from Russia, which the Russians have drilled for and are selling to the Germans. And now with the war going on and the pressure from NATO and the United States and whatever for the Germans to quit using the Russian gas, one of the pipelines has been shut down, and I guess this one, I don't know if this is the active one or not, Ken, but it's bubbling away. It's letting gas into the atmosphere, greenhouse gas. So I don't know if Joe Biden's going to put on his scuba gear because the Baltic's it's fairly shallow, and go down there and plug it up with some bubble gum or something. But at any rate, so now, did you hear the Chechnya, it's one of the Russian provinces, and that's where they had all of the Muslim terrorists that attacked people in Moscow years ago. At any rate, it's part of the Russia country. It's kind of like Puerto Rico is part of it.
They annexed it, didn't they?
Yeah. And so their leader, their president, he said he thinks that Putin ought to go ahead and use some tactical, some field nuclear weapons against the Ukrainians. And so Biden said, if you do that, we will respond, blah, 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 blah. Are we getting into a world war here? I'm a little worried.
We're inching closer.
We're inching closer, and I must.
The real problem now is he's just annexed new areas.
Yeah,
it was a sham vote, but he's now considered those part of Russia.
Even though the Ukrainians are taking them back.
Right, but as he was announcing they were his, they took the major city back.
Yeah, they took the major city back while Putin was saying that's now part of Russia. And that's oh, really? How come there's a Ukrainian flag flying over City Hall here?
But he also said he won't really go to nukes unless somebody violates Russian territory. So now, have they done that? Have they, is this just a way of him coming up with an excuse to use nukes, saying, well, you violated Russian territory when you came in with your American weapons?
Yeah, and I think that's certainly a possibility that they're going to use that as a ploy to escalate the war. And, they're drafting 300,000 men, 300,000. And there's riots going on in some of the cities and protest, and oligarchs are bailing. And I'm thinking about selling my shares in the Russian Trans-Siberian Railway. I don't know if that's going to stand up much longer.
No, keep the railway stock.
Keep the railway stock?
Yeah.
That always goes well.
Railways will always be there. Yeah. Even when the electric cars have all stopped.
Yeah.
We'll still be taking trains.
Well, I'm waiting.
Pretty soon we're going to be on horseback.
I'm waiting for Gavin Newsom to start supplying the whole country with cheap electricity from his windmills out there.
He's having trouble just keeping L.A. on. Come on.
L.A.'s having trouble keeping smaller cities than that on, but I don't know if you've seen the windmills out there up on the hill going out of the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm like, is this really going to power the whole world? I'm like, no, this is not going to work. And I think that solar and wind power are only supplying about 15%, 20% of the electricity out in California, and certainly much less in other parts of the country. But oh well, what are you going to do?
We have to move on to nuclear. We've got to get rid of that stigma.
We could we could do a deal with Putin and say, look, we'll give you eastern Ukraine, and you give us all of your nuclears, and we'll reprocess it into fuel for nuclear plants. Do you think he'd go for that?
No.
Well, darn.
But it's a good idea.
Then I'm not going to even propose it to him. I tell you, this is just ridiculous.
I think he's going off the deep end. I really do.
I think this is pretty typical of the Russian hierarchy, the czars and the communist, the Stalins and the Lenins. They have wanted control over the Black Sea for centuries, and they'll do anything they can to get it. And they've been at war off and on with the European powers and the Ukrainians and the Poles and everybody else trying to get their hands on all of the Black Sea. They keep running into Turkey, which kind of slows them down. And occasionally they pick a fight with the Germans. They don't seem to fare very well with the Germans. I don't know if the Germans are willing to stand up and fight at this point, but you never know. I mean, it doesn't take a lot to turn a nation around. Look at Pearl Harbor. Look what it did to our country. We were basically pacifists. We didn't want to go into World War II. And then when Pearl Harbor hit, the whole country did a 180.
Yeah.
You never know.
So you don't know what's going to set it off. That's right.
And, if somebody accidentally drops a nuclear shell on, several thousand Ukrainians, that could be the trigger that people say, whoa, that could be us next. And
well, I think we got to do something. You see, that's just it. We got to do something.
We got to do something.
If we don't, the gloves are off.
And we cannot sit back and just let this happen. And this is what I said even before all of this flared up, when they started mass troops on the Ukrainian border, when the Russians did. I said, we've got to send troops into the Ukraine and send a clear message. You punch a bully in the nose and you send him home to mom crying with a bloody nose. You don't wait for him to come in and beat up the little kid. You got to step in early. And,
exactly.
And we're the big kid. We're the big kid. But they didn't listen to me. I don't think they like me, kid.
I know. And we beg them to.
And yes, we really do.
But they just don't listen.
Meanwhile, China's pitching a fit at the International Nuclear Energy Commission, which is now part of the United Nations, and they're trying to thwart the AUKUS deal. I told you about this several months ago. That's Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. And the deal here is that the United States and Great Britain are going to help the Australians build nuclear-powered submarines. Of course, the Chinese press is turning this into nuclear-armed submarines, which I don't think that's the primary intention. I think the primary intention is to give the Australians some strategic weapons that are ultra-powerful and ultra-quiet, and that's nuclear. So you got two things, Ken. You got a nuclear reactor that basically makes steam. It's a big steam reactor. That turns a turbine, which then produces electricity from a generator, and that's stored and used to run the motors. Now, the actual nuclear missiles are in the silos, and they're not part of the nuclear reactor. So you got two things. The nuclear missiles are much higher, much more enriched uranium or whatever we're using, plutonium, for the bombs, and that is highly explosive because it's super fissionable. But we're not saying we're going to arm them with nuclear weapons. I mean, we probably will, and the Chinese are trying to spin it that that's what we're going to do, although they don't have any direct evidence. So they're blocking, and they're rallying a bunch of the smaller countries behind them. But is
it working? Are they lining up behind China? I haven't heard any of that yet.
Well, according to the Chinese, they are at the big meeting, the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Association, or whatever they call it, conference. They're the United States and Great Britain and Australia are going there to seek approval and get support. Try and play by the rules. And
sure,
the Chinese are saying, well, we don't think you should, and we want everybody to vote with us. And they say, now I don't know if the vote's been taken, but they say they've got the votes to at least at that level halt it. Not that they can halt it, Ken, but they can make the United States and Great Britain and Australia look like they're not team players.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see about that.
We shall see. And
I love it when the Chinese use international law, cite international law at any time about anything, because they flout it more than anybody else on the planet.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's at every level. It's not only at international law, it's at international accounting principles and standards for their corporations. And they want to list their corporations on our exchanges. And we've been saying to them for years, well, if you're going to do that, you have to have accounting principles that are like ours and that are reviewable by us or by our auditors. So just as we audit our companies and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do and not cheating the stockholders and not doing things accidentally to hurt the company, we want the same thing for Chinese companies if they're going to list on our stock exchange and our people are going to invest in them. And they've been fighting that for years. And at every level, they want climate change. They want to be part of the climate change treaty, but they don't want to obey it.
Well, that's the way they are with everything. The China Sea is ours. I'm sorry. No, it's not.
It's not okay. And this is just typical of the way the communist Chinese have behaved over the decades. And at some point, they're going to have to think long and hard about what they're doing, because they're not going to fit into the world community if they keep this up. Now,
speaking of the world community, if Russia were to go nuclear, don't you think even the Chinese would say, okay, well, that's a bridge too far there, fella?
Well, I would think so, because if the Chinese get pulled into it, I mean, they're no match for us. Neither is Russia. One submarine could take a whole continent off the map. One of our nuclear subs.
True.
With the multiple reentries, so let's say you have 20 missiles and you've got 20 warheads on each one of them. That's 400 nuclear warheads, and I don't know how many megatons those things are. They're probably capable of destroying a whole county each, and so this is not to be taken lightly. This is not to be taken lightly, and the Chinese better think long and hard about backing the Russians up, and they probably are. I'm sure that they're showing a good face to the Russians, but I don't think they've given them a whole lot of support. I may be wrong. I haven't seen anything. Have you?
No, not really. No, I've heard some stories about the North Koreans sending things, and maybe Iran, but that's about it.
Well, Iran's sending their drones, which are probably junk, and the North Koreans are sending half-starved troops, which are probably
who don't speak Russian, I'll bet,
and who are probably glad to get out of North Korea. They're probably, hey, now that I'm here, can I seek asylum in Russia?
Yeah, we won't be coming back.
I mean, it'd be a step up to go from North Korea to Russia. It'd be a big step up.
Oh yeah, huge.
They
actually have food in Russia.
Back on the other side of the pond, do you know the newspaper called The Guardian?
The Guardian. I've seen some articles from The Guardian.
The Guardian is a British publication, and it's ultra-liberal, like most everything coming out of the press, and especially out of the British press. And so now they're going after our Supreme Court. So they're saying on Monday the 9 justices of the Supreme Court will take their seats at the start of a new judicial year even as the shock waves of the panel's previous seismic term continue to reverberate across America. And so they think that the court has eviscerated the right to an abortion, loosened America's already lax, where our gun laws are lax, erected roadblocks to combating the climate crisis, and awarded religious groups greater say in public life. Oh my God, this is coming. This is coming from the British news. Ken, something's not right here. Am I missing something? The whole world seems to be focused on our conservative movement.
It's just people like to talk about it, I guess.
You know, I remember back during the summer when the Democrats were beating the war drums about Roe versus Wade being overturned, and it looked like they might be getting some traction from that for the election. And now it looks like things are turning around again.
Right, because voters always vote their wallet in the end.
And I think people are concerned about not only the economy, but about illegal immigration and the increase in crime in the big cities. And this is something that we really have to take seriously. I mean, this is what we're about, and self-preservation is the first law. And if you don't get that one down, then the rest of the day is pretty well shot. Now, my son, he thinks that DeSantis sending illegal immigrants up to, where'd he send them? To Cape Cod or somewhere. Yeah. And of course, they quickly they booted him out right away. But he said, that's just a political stunt. I said, what are you talking about? Why should the southern states that are the border states shoulder all the responsibility for illegal immigrants coming in? You know, you got 2 million illegal immigrants in so far this year. Who's going to take care of these people? They don't have anything in their pockets. They come here broke. They come here.
Yeah, you have to. It should be national policy. You spread the pain. You want open borders. Everybody's got to chip in.
Well, basically, Biden has just ignored the law because the borders aren't supposed to be open, and the Remain in Mexico ruling was upheld by the court, and he said, "I'm not going to do what the court says," which he's not the first president to do that. I mean, a lot of them have ignored the Supreme Court. I like what Andrew Jackson said after he got rid of the federal banking system, and of course we went into a depression. And the Supreme Court overturned it, and he said, "Do they have an army?" He says, "I do." Let me see them enforce it. So, I mean, you know, it's the same rub that's always been there between the executive and the legislative and judicial branches of any government. How much can the executive, the king or the president, get away with, and how much will the legislation step on him, and how much will the judiciary block him, and how much will the country back up the judiciary or the legislative or the executive branch? So we've got some questions going on here, and I don't really see the Supreme Court as having stopped the right to an abortion. I think they just said that it's up to the states to decide that. It's not in the federal Constitution as to whether or not you should have religious or health care rights. I mean, health care, not religious rights you do have, but health care rights and you know, say over your own body and that sort of thing. I mean, different states have different laws about vaccinations, Ken. Alabama's Mississippi, I think it's Mississippi, has the most extreme, that the kids have to be vaccinated before they go to school, and unless it's a medical situation like some autoimmune disease, you cannot have a religious reason not to vaccinate your kids, which only makes sense since you know, Jesus never said anything about vaccines, and neither did Muhammad or Buddha. You know why? There were no vaccines.
That's right.
There weren't any, and you know, why would God be against vaccines anyway? I mean,
I can't imagine. He gave us everything we need to take care of ourselves, so why would he be upset about it?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be like, you know, dude, as I've said before, he's a Darwinist anyway. He's like, because I've talked to him occasionally, and he says, I'm just as curious how this is all going to turn out as you are. I just set the whole thing in motion. After that, you're on your own.
Exactly.
And it should be that way. It should be that way. And that's one of the the big problems with all religions, they've gone through this over the centuries, is it fatalistic? Are we predetermined? Or do we have some level of free will? Can we make decisions? And of course, we do make decisions, good and bad, right and wrong, and that's how we learn. But
free choice. That's right. You pay for your mistakes.
You pay for your mistakes, buddy. You pay for your mistakes. So at any rate, I guess the Merrill versus Mulligan concerns Alabama, where Republican lawmakers want to draw up congressional district maps that would give black voters the power to send just one African-American member to Congress out of a total of 7 representatives, even though black Alabamans make up a quarter of the state's population. I'm sure that this is skewed a little bit, and gerrymandering, as you know, actually goes all the way back to the beginning of our country, where politicians, whatever party was in power, would redraw districts to try to make it more favorable to their party, and re-skew the population base. So if you have...
Yeah, there's nothing new about redistricting. So
no, there's nothing new about that, and the Supreme Court has been fairly laissez-faire over this for all times, and saying, well, look, that's a state issue, and you're going to have to work it out at that level unless you can show us that there's some breach of the federal Constitution. Now, this may or may not be a good reason to change the Constitution and have the House representatives voted on by the entire population of the state. But the problem with that, Ken, is that then the big cities would hold the sway once again, and it would be up to the Senate to keep that from becoming a runaway, one-sided, lopsided democracy where the big cities are telling the rest of us what to do, even though we're feeding and clothing and building their houses and taking care of them. I mean, because you can't grow anything in New York City, for God's sakes. You can't
try and grow some corn in Manhattan.
Yeah, let's see you put up a pine for us and chop it down and make it into 2x4s. I mean, come on, guys. One hand washes the other. This is nonsense that people think that they should have the right to dictate one segment of society to another. I mean, you got to work together, or it won't work at all.
This history of our great nation is compromise.
Dang, I hate that word.
Sorry.
that just pees me off so bad. And the wife is, she's always saying, well, can't you compromise, honey? Which means see it my way or get out.
Well, that's not a compromise.
Although she's been very nice to me this week. Barb, our next-door neighbor, 85-year-old, she came up to the office with us, and another one of the elderly women here. And they were all praising me, except for my wife, about how hard I work, because, I'm hauling this and that, and sandbags and equipment and air mattresses and pillows and food and hauling it all back out and cooking for them and cleaning up after them. And they're like, hey, Myung, you really got a good husband. You better treat him right.
That's right. And you know what, Doc? We got about 20 seconds left.
I am Dr. Bill, your radio MD. I'm at 727-384-6411. And I want everybody to give us a call and come see me in the office. I want the whole world to come see me. And I'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks for being with me.
All right, Doc. You take care, man.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Dr. Bill, your radio MD. Join Dr. Bill every Sunday morning at 9 for more insight, information, provocation, and fun. Dr. Bill Handelman practices in St. Petersburg, Florida at Bay Area Medical Can Care Clinic, 6399 38th Avenue North. For your convenience, telemedicine appointments are available. Call his office today at 727-384-6411. That's 727-384-6411. Or visit his website at cancareclinic.com.